Welcome to the Resist Average Academy, your source for inspiring stories, lessons, and action steps designed to level up every area of your life. Here's your host, Tommy Baker.
Resist Average Nation, welcome back to another full-length episode. I'm your host, Tommy Baker, and today's episode is going to be special in-house guest here in Phoenix, Arizona. But before we get there, I just want to remind you that we are closing down the year, and it's been an incredible last quarter on the Academy Nation. We've had 2 momentum challenges where people came from all over the world to really create momentum, to manufacture momentum. And the reason that we created these was why? Because so often we wait for external momentum, for external news, for something to happen outside of ourselves, for us to feel good enough to execute on our dreams. And here's the truth: for your dream, the thing that you want to create, your North Star, the thing that matters to you, you have to create the feelings to step into it every single day. Because if you wait around, guess what? You'll feel like it 50% of the time. And these days, that's not enough. So make sure you're following along. We're going to have more opportunities for training in the Momentum Challenge. We're going to have more opportunities in my brand new hybrid coaching mastermind and training experience called The Arena, and so much more for you to take the wisdom and the knowledge of this podcast, because that's what it is. You know, we go deep. We go deeper than most podcasts. Why? To extract the wisdom so you can go from knowing something to practicing something, or the doing. And when we get to the doing and we do that long enough, consistently, then it becomes who we are. Then it becomes a living and breathing principle that we don't even have to think about. We just show up with. And this is how you create a masterful, fulfilled life. So my latest guest, his name is Matt Gottesman. We had him in the studio. He runs Hustle and Deal Flow. He's an entrepreneur. So his content is some of the best that I've seen on social. I actively seek it out because he blends the worlds of performance and spirituality in a way that is just incredible. And Matt's been a friend. We've had mutual connections, but we finally sat down and we discussed how to get your idea off the ground, how picking an option and being limited creates freedom, how to create structure and discipline and routine. And we talk about the misconceptions in business. We talk about how to increase flow and this feeling of progress and consistency. And guys, we could have gone for hours, but this was an incredible episode that's really going to wake you up, especially during this time of the year when we're reflecting. You're looking back, you're saying, how was 2019? Where were my biggest wins? Where were my challenges? And Matt and I will break it down all for you. So welcome Matt Gottesman to the Academy. Academy Nation, welcome back to another full-length episode. Really excited. We got an in-person guest. As always, these in-person ones, we go one level. We're already going deep. Now we're going like into the middle of the core deep. So welcome to the Academy, Matt Gottesman.
How's it going, man? Thank you. That was perfect, by the way. Thank you.
I had to practice it, man. When people tell me how to say their name and then I have to do it like 2 seconds later, I usually mess it up, but hey.
I know. I have the same thing on mine, actually. I'm like, oh, shit.
At least my name is pretty simple. Dude, yeah. Long time coming.
Thank you.
Pumped to have you. You are one of the highest value creating people I follow in social media, like point blank, dude.
Thank you.
And that's like total authentic. Like your posts, you're one of the rare people that I go search out their posts, and then every time I search them out, I'm like, oh yeah. You know that feeling when you see something that connects?
Do.
Yeah, it's it's over and over. It's like, oh, and it almost basically every one of your posts is that way. So obviously it's coming from a really powerful place. You're able to blend the worlds of what we call hustle and work ethic and all the principles of achievement with a really rooted message.
Yeah.
A rooted message of releasing the ego, of being grounded, of humility, of spirituality. But let me start here, man. Your story is powerful. You had an inflection moment, which I just call these moments where there's 2 train tracks, and we can take the safe path, and we can take a path that we know is consciously not working, or we can do something new. So you had an experience like this, I think 4 or 5 years ago. You were going down a corporate path. You had all the markers of what the traditional definition of success is, but something was missing. What happened?
Oof. How much time you got? No, well, I was always a corporate consultant. I was always worked for myself. So that whole other battle of entrepreneurship is a beast in itself. But I was making a good run. I had a lot of really great brands that I was consulting with. One project in particular was very big, and I had also brought a lot of other people to the table in that, in having that kind of shared cash flow, if you will, as well as making the results happen. I was also, I was married. There was just a lot of different things that on paper looked really good up until about 6 years ago, as the outside world saw it. But I was lacking an inner depth of where it was really going. I was lacking clarity, and I was just moving in too many directions too fast without actually slowing down a bit. And so all at once, it was just basically one after the other. Like one contract went away, then another, then all these other contracts, even though the work got done really well. There was more work to be done. It was just sort of like, hey, so thanks. But I'm so grateful for that, because what I had asked for it. That's the thing that people don't realize about, we always hear the things about the law of attraction, and people always say the positive side, but what they don't realize is look, wherever you're putting energy, that's what's going to happen. And so for me, I did not like necessarily professionally who I was around, and I didn't like how things were going in general. So I had kind of a very big surrendering moment. I know I'm kind of giving the PG version at this point, but it was just for time's sake, but it was it hit me very hard. And so that catapulted me into, okay, everything's gone. So, I had a house that was rented in another city, but I was, so my lease is up. So it's all right. So the relationship is done. The home is done. I don't have a place to live. All my contracts are gone. So I'm now quote unquote jobless.
Yes.
All this stuff happened all at once. Then I'm I'm about to start from scratch again. And the inflection point was my father, God rest his soul, just passed away when it was about 5, almost 6 years ago. We were in an airport coming home from Europe, and he just looked at me and he said, hey, this is I'm about to head into divorce. And he's like, which way do you think it's going to go? I'm 50-50. And he's like, which 50? And I was they're probably not the one that we want. And he said, I love you. And that hit me hard. My father, he's a very good father. He doesn't normally express that, but he showed through lots of actions, and he would, he'd use, oh yes dear and stuff like that. But I remember, seeing a New York lawyer guy sit across from me and say, I love you. And he goes, but if you're really serious about ever running your race, you better get started immediately. You better start running your race for you. And it hit me so hard because I wasn't expecting that to come from him.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And it was one of those where you put your face in your hands, I felt that in my soul and it hurt. What am I doing? And so that's the start of my
That's incredible, man. So just a couple things on that. Obviously, once you got into that season, it was an uprooting of so much change.
Oh yeah.
There's so much going on. And starting over, and just a complete metamorphosis, right? Now, leading up to that, you said you were going a mile a minute, 100 miles an hour. But were there whispers along the way, hints, signs, things, or were you just not open to hearing them at all? Or did you have moments of hey, I'm going down the wrong path, but hey, then you rationalize it or something? Did you have that, or was it just
absolutely
okay? Or because sometimes I believe we all have them, but sometimes we can't really hear them, or we just ignore them, or we mask them, or we ego rationalize them away.
All of the above.
Yeah, you used every tactic.
I used every tactic. I knew there were signs. I knew there were areas in my life things were missing. I wasn't being present or accountable in understanding, how to, but I was also trying my best, which was cool. So I loved my integrity, and I loved my my work ethic, and I loved what I was trying to do. But it lacked a lot of other other characteristics and things that I needed, and there were definitely a lot of signs. I just didn't have the tool set to deal with them. I didn't know what to do, and it wasn't until I went into a spiritual mentor, if you will. And I said, he goes, "What's going on?" And I said, "My soul hurts." Yeah. You know, and he's like, "That's a tough one." I didn't even know, because I didn't even know like those weren't the words that I was thinking before I went to him. They were just like, I just sat down. I'm like, I don't know. I'll go see so and so. You know, he's respected by my parents. And I go to him and he goes, "What can I do for you, Matt? What's going on?" I'm like, "My soul hurts." That was like the first words out of my mouth. And he was just like, "Ooh, okay, let's start at the beginning."
Totally, man. Totally. You talked about radical honesty though, because when we go through metamorphoses, the reason why they're so powerful, even though they can be incredibly painful, or even conscious ones, they put us in a place of radical honesty with ourselves.
Yes.
But we can be radically honest with ourselves and still have deep gratitude and appreciation for ourselves. I think what happens a lot of times is that people get radically honest and they allow that honesty to tell a story about who they are from an identity piece. So meaning my life is in shambles. This is what's going on. Right. Nothing is working. That says something about who I am at my core. And that's a faulty model, because those are just circumstances. So
right.
I love what you said, because you were really honest, but you're also at the same time, you were giving yourself grace that you were doing the best that you could with what you had, which is what all of our evolutions are. I always remind people, like, you got right here, and we understand that's not where you want to go, but give yourself some grace.
Right. That's exactly, and that was tough. That was actually tough for me, because from an entrepreneurial mindset, from a driven mindset, we want to constantly push ourselves, and so sometimes those levels of fall, it can really, really hurt, But yeah, you're absolutely right. It was just sort of like, all right, what got me here is definitely not going to get me any further, and I can't blame anybody for anything, because it won't do me any good. Even if I was right in a lot of circumstances, it doesn't matter, because whatever choices I made got me here. So I have to be honest with myself. I like who I am, but I can do better. And I can be better, and I can start to learn how to implement tools that'll help me make the kind of decisions for the life that I want to head towards, and hopefully not experience these types of circumstances again.
Yeah, I love that, because a lot of people operate from the complete opposite of that. I hate who I am, or they might not use that language, but the internal narrative is there. Let me operate out of sheer fear to achieve something, so I can alleviate the pain of not appreciating myself. But it never lasts. So I think that's awesome that you were operating from, even though your circumstances were painful, you were operating from a grounded place. Now you had that powerful moment with your father at the airport. A lot of people have insights, and those moments, like, we all have insights of really powerful, soul moving moments where a change has to be made, or a direction, we have to go in this direction or that direction. But sometimes they just stay as insights.
Right.
So what did you do differently an hour after that, the day after that, the week? Like, what did you actually do differently to start making it real? Because you and I live in a world of people are always chasing clarity and breakthrough.
Right.
Mental breakthrough, spiritual breakthrough, entrepreneurial breakthrough, go to the event, get the vision, get ready. And then it's like, and then it becomes, and what I see is dangerous, like people chasing breakthrough. No integration. So what did you do to integrate that?
Oh man, I went right into action mode. That's where it's at. So several different things. I took a step back first. Yeah. Like, okay, let's just look at the situation.
Like, which is action in itself.
It is an action. It's like, all right, let me kind of audit myself here for a second and see, like, what just happened, and what do I like, what do I not like, what's going down, how, what do I need right now? And then it was several different things. So the first was the spiritual aspect. So I went to somebody who was just a very well-respected individual worldwide, from a very spiritual sense, connected me with some other people up here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And they just were teaching me a lot about my own character. And but in learning it, you can't, ignorance is bliss. Once you learn something, you can't go back. So like, I would instantly start to implement what I was learning about my character, like whether it would be the words that I was using or any commitments, like things that I was saying, and and then spending a lot of time each morning gratitude journaling. Just taking small little actions, in that aspect. From a professional standpoint, so a lot of different companies and brands that I had worked with, I've always been like a techie, digital guy, growth marketer, a brander, like all these different things. Like just if it's the internet, I've been around it since like the late 90s. I started very, very young. And so a lot of that world didn't really get it. And I had also tried to help a few VCs and otherwise whatnot. And everybody was always just so about like that quick buck, that quick like return, if you will, of like, of marketing. Yeah. Right? The old model. And I was just like, all right, I want to serve my way out of where I'm at by taking the talents I'm really good at and applying them to my own brands online. I will help other people in the process, but at the same time, I will grow my own media so we can have healthy conversations around what's really, really real, what's really going on in entrepreneurship, in relationships, in spirituality, and all these things. So I wanted a media company as my outlet. Now, I did it strategically because it wasn't just like, oh, let me put up some media and see what happens. Like, I knew something about it. Sure. And so from a professional aspect, I was like, let me just serve, not be so, bottom line and let's get these tasks done for these companies and let's, think about the, the profitability, like all these things. Let me just serve first. So now on my creative side, so I've got my spiritual side going, I now got my creative side going, and I just started like building these, I built the website, I built the social media, started interacting with people, doing features on them and whatnot as well, for the sole fact that I wanted to build my audience for the future. And now I had a lot of people who also abandoned me, the second group of people who abandoned me. So first you got the people who like get rid of you, you know what I mean? From your old world. Sure. Then you got the next group that are like, so what are you, like a glorified blogger? Like, you used to be in the tech world and you were doing this and you're doing that. I'm like, well, how do you not see what I'm doing? Yeah. P.S. Most of them did come back later on when I had like they always hundreds of thousands of people that are like, hey, so we need to do a marketing campaign. I'm like, oh, okay. But
a lot of them end up coming back.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I always tell people on your growth journey, the people that criticize you early on, to me, some of the best feedback I can get is like, when that person did the whole cycle and now they're like coming and they're like, hey, I see what you're doing and now I actually need help, even though 3.5 years ago, I was calling you a bullshit life coach.
Right.
I love what you're doing, actually. I got all of your books. Yeah. That to me is like the best compliment because it means that they went through the whole journey of dissolving their own ego and getting in a place of asking for help. And that's really powerful. And then they saw my journey through that process. And like it's very powerful. One of the best compliments I can get.
I got chills just thinking about that because you're absolutely right. Because it didn't matter what stage you were in, you were consistent. And so whether they didn't believe it then, they don't believe it 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5, like your consistency shows that you are what you say you are. And that once their ego does get out of the way, they be like, wow, like I'm ready for him now. Like he really was committed. He was very consistent in his building. He stuck to it. Yeah, I want to go to that person because he followed through.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the Trent Shelton quote when he was on my podcast. Words lie, actions can lie too, but consistency tells the truth.
Consistency tells all of the truth. It tells the whole story. Yes. And that to me is why I won't ever stop, and it's been a journey ever since. So I had that spiritual, I had that creative. And then, I there was the mentorship aspect. I also, I don't know if there's cussing allowed, but
dude,
okay. There was
X-rated.
I just gave a talk the other day and I said, they were asked me about mentorship and I said, you know how I got really good mentors? And they said, how? And I'm like, because I shut the fuck up. Ooh. And they were like, oh, and I was like, it's not saying that I wasn't an egomaniac before, but when you're a bit younger in the game, you tend to operate from a like just go, shoot from the hip mode, without really thinking about things and that confidence that you have from your skill set, but you're not in it in terms of your mind, your intuition, alignment, all that other stuff. Yeah. So I had to shut the fuck up and I had to go find mentors. I knew what I was looking for. And in that mentorship, I was able to get the type of people who they would just give really great advice or show me give me direction. And then of course do the thing that I'm always good at, which was I was always good at the work. So I never had a problem with the work. But if my ego ever started getting a little out of hand, the conversations would be very pertinent. They would be very direct, where it would be like, oh, I see where I'm missing the point here. Got it. You know what I mean? So I think you have to be coachable and open to listening to really get mentored. And if you're not, don't ask for a mentor, because and so any of your listeners like that, especially your clients, I think that they really have to be open to listening, and then they have the responsibility to not only do the work, which also respects their coach.
Ooh.
Right? So I had to also, not only did I have to show up, but if these people are giving me their time, then my respect to them is doing the work, is showing up, is, people don't, that's the thing, is most people don't realize our actions are actually like a ripple effect. They affect everybody and everything, and we can't just say something and then not do it. You know what I mean? We have to follow through with that. So I had that, and then I had the books. And whenever I read all these great books, I actually would implement it immediately. Because a lot of people get stuck reading. Like as you're saying, they go to each event, they read each book. I would basically experiment with the new things and see. I would just pick up these little bits along the way. Some of it would, some of the new sayings would come into my gratitude journaling. Some of the new things would come into the way I was eating. Some of the new things would come into my new night routines or morning routines. I would see and mold and shape myself based on the things I was learning in these different books.
Yes. Right? That's conscious lifestyle design. Where you're to me, my 10-year journey, I got to a place where I was like, man, I would read something from that book in business. Let's say that book in creativity. I would pick up a deeply spiritual book. Then I would pick up a book on business. And I just got the same pearl said 3 different ways. And I was like, okay, I'm starting to pull at universal truths. Right. I'm not just starting to pull at really context nuanced stuff. And that was when my journey got really exciting, because I was like, man, this is going from just knowledge to very nuanced context to wisdom. But I gotta stop you on the mentorship, man, because you talked about you gotta shut the fuck up.
Yes.
And dude, I consider this very binary, because it's like it's like an energy, right? When you hire a mentor and you're asking for help, you're either all in or you're all out. If you're 92% in, what if that 8% was the breakthrough that you needed? That last 8% was going to create the breakthrough. You know what I mean?
I do.
And so often, one of my affirmations, I don't even think I've ever shared this with anyone, but we are the stories that we tell ourselves. One of mine are, I'm the most coachable motherfucker on the planet. And I use those words because it does something inside of me, where if I'm at an event or I'm hired a coach, or even when I had a dream of going to the CrossFit Games, so I had a coach there. I would look at my coach and I wanted them to see lasers going through my eyes with how open, ready, and willing I was to put the work.
Yes.
And you talked about respect, and it's respect for them, which is a mirror of the respect for ourselves.
Absolutely.
And if we're not willing to follow through, who are we letting down?
Exactly.
The person in the mirror every single day. I mean, we're letting down a whole host of other people, but we're the ones that have to live with the consequences of those decisions every single day.
Absolutely. If you look at most successful people, right? They will tell you the same thing. They have the time to mentor. Yeah. They want to mentor you. They want to help a lot of people out. The myth is that so many people are like, oh, they're too busy. Oh, they're this, they're that. I don't want to get, they won't mentor me. They won't help me. It's lonely at top because 1, most people won't do the work. And 2, they want to bring more people, but the people that they want to bring have to do the work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's like,
totally.
So what often happens is there's just a lot of people who aren't coachable because, it requires, I can guide you, I can direct you, just like I was guided and directed, and I'm constantly trying to always up-level that. But it's the work ethic of, hey, look, if what you were doing before wasn't working, you got to change it, man. There's no.
It's so obvious.
Yeah, it's obvious. There's no weird pill or blueprint or all this stuff. It's like, okay, it got me to a certain point.
Yeah.
but it's no longer doing what I needed to do. So like,
Yes.
that's why I truly believe like people they have to be open to just listening and be like, all right, and definitely find people. I always say find people, right? This is not my quote. Find people that you'd be willing to trade places with, like people who you like their lifestyle of, how they lead their life.
That's key.
That's everything.
Because it's very easy to say, hey, this guy's making multiple 7 figures. I want to be like that person.
Right.
But holistically, you're not looking at the relationships. What is their, and again, it's about your values. You have to identify your values. That's why your audit got you clear on what you wanted, which a lot of people aren't clear on. They're clear on what they don't want.
Yeah.
And then when you ask them what they want, well, they say the usual Hallmark card. Hey, I want to make more money. I want to live a fulfilled life. I want to help people. Nobody knows what that means.
Right.
The universe doesn't know what that means. You don't know what that means. So guess what? You're essentially letting yourself off the hook from actually ever stepping into it, because how could you create something when you have no clarity around it? And that's what your audit did.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to slow down so we can speed back up.
Absolutely. I've been preaching that now for a good minute, that slowing everything down allows you to get very present, get out all the shit that doesn't need to be there, like reduce the overwhelm.
Okay, I got to stop you there though, because it's too powerful.
Okay.
You talked about deletion.
Yeah.
So your first step after taking inventory is getting rid of shit. Tell me more about that.
Oh yeah.
What are people getting rid of? Because I love it, because you talked about overwhelm.
Yeah.
Everyone's busy, everyone's overwhelmed, everyone's stressed. And especially if you're going to start a new venture, if you're going to start a new business, if you're going to build a brand, if you're going to build a brand, product or service or coaching or a platform online, you got to release the overwhelm. You got to release the procrastination, the things that are consuming your time and space and environment. So what do you get rid of?
Ooh, yeah, it's definitely a 2-part process, and part 1 can take a while. Yeah. I've even seen it take a couple years. So minimizing everything that doesn't serve me, getting rid of people, removing yourself from circles and whatnot or people, all the way down to I started cleaning out my closets. Dude. I started throwing out boxes. I started throwing out old stuff that didn't serve me. I started getting rid of donating clothes. I wanted to make space for the new to come in. So
game changer.
So yeah, and then it was it's the details. It's always the details. Cleaning out the fridge and making sure that it's just like very clean, and then like it has only like really good, clean, healthy foods in there. To if I had any credit card debt, get rid of the credit card debt. To finally the market changed from where one of my houses, where my house that I had that was rented, that was like costing me $500 a month. It's still energy. Money is energy. Finally closed on that. This year, finally got rid of that after 15 years. And so like there's some things that will take a little bit longer to get rid of, and you feel the weight, you feel that energy off your shoulders as you just keep like, but but that comes from an audit. It's like, all right.
You have clarity on where you're going.
Yes.
And you said the question, you said the phrase, I deleted anything that wasn't serving me.
Right.
If you don't know, if you have no context for where you're going, which I define as just a North Star vision, something out there. It's not a map, it's a vision. It's something out there that you're being compelled to. If you don't know what that is, then I don't know if this next glass of water is going to serve me. I don't know if saying yes to someone who hits me up on Instagram, says they want to connect for coffee or a collaboration is going to serve me. I get down on my computer. Everybody's Matt and Tommy are telling me to do focused work. I open up my laptop. I'm at Starbucks. I got my nitro cold brew, and then I got a blinking cursor because I don't know. I have no North Star. So what the hell am I going to do to fill that space?
Right. Well, and here's the tricky part too. I totally relate to this next part, which is it's okay if you don't know where you're going yet either. That's hard. That's hard because it's like, think about how much we evolve in time, right? We're more than one thing, which I also preach a lot.
Sure.
But part of the way you get clear is by getting rid of a lot of stuff. And then the second part is looking at, and I took a little bit of this from like Dr. Joe Dispenza, which is like, let me look at my future self and understand what that life looks and feels like, and then how am I behaving in my present, circumstances to the man that's playing to that future state. So if I make a decision, is it in alignment? Would the guy in the future version of me make that same decision? So first I I got rid of stuff to get clear. Then I thought about the future life I wanted to have. And then on top of that, I allowed the flexibility during creation and creativity to mold and shape how that starts to look and feel. I let it be a little bit more organic because we don't have all the answers.
No, and we don't want to have all the answers.
We don't.
Yeah. The journey is so beautiful. Part of the journey is the unknowns that you could never have imagined on your way there.
Right.
I wrote in the 1% rule, if I came to someone's place and gave them everything they ever wanted and a detailed step-by-step plan to their vision, we lose that hero's journey part of us, the Joseph Campbell's, the mythological journey of facing our doubt and our call to adventure, which is the thing that really drives fulfillment.
Yeah.
If I just give you everything that we've ever wanted, then to me it's boring.
Well, and there's also identity building in there too, because we're understanding more about who we are in the decisions that we're making and why we're making the decisions that we're making, and the person that we see ourselves becoming, who we always are, but in order to be that person, there's all this shedding going on. There's all the layers that you got to get rid of that you didn't even know were there, to actually understand why you're doing, who you really are, you're already it. That's the issue, is that you're already technically it, and everything you want is technically there. How you were carrying yourself, how you were making decisions every day is the determining factor of how you will actually have the things that are already there.
Yes.
They've always been there. It's just a matter of all that fucking clutter.
They've been covered up with stories and armors and non-serving beliefs and people and environments and the person that broke up with us in high school. I mean, there's all this
trauma and the pain. And
it's all there. And you and I know that living in the past, it's painful, but it's also addictive.
And we don't even know we're doing it sometimes.
No way.
That's the worst part. You're that's why I make that decision. That's gotta go right now.
Okay, so for so long in my entrepreneurial journey, there's been so many ups and downs, and there's been so many moments where I didn't know where the next check was gonna come from. One of my living in the past tendencies, and so for about, I would say 4 years, I would go to the gas station and I would help fill up halfway.
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
Because I didn't know, I needed some bandwidth for groceries and shit.
Right.
Even today, that was so wired. That was a year and a half ago. I remember being on a road trip with Taylor, completely different circumstances.
It's so true.
And guess what? I stopped the tank halfway.
Yeah.
Because of my past conditioning of living in survival and living in scarcity. Right? So even me, I was like, what am I doing? She's like, why did you fill it up? Oh, I was like, oh my God. So it's automatic programming in the past. And so what you're talking about is a lot of times people have a vision or something that they want to change, and all of their choices and decisions are rooted in the past.
Yes.
So, hey, I see this person at the coffee shop that I really feel pulled to talk to. They're having a conversation about business. It's right in my industry. I should go talk to them. The past version of yourself says, no, I'm not going to do that. They'll probably be busy. The new version of you says, I'm going to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And you start to stack decisions and choices and start to pave the road of your future. And just like you said, if you do that long enough, you actually collapse the time. You allow that person to show up today.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you speed everything up. But by the way, I was sitting there internalizing everything you were just saying is so true. I still notice it every now and then. Those are those layers where why did I fill up the tank halfway? Why was I even worrying about that? The grocery bill or certain things. It's okay, but I'm investing in my health. Why wouldn't I get those extra things? It's funny how that old conditioning during your growth can still come up. And
totally.
And I like that we're talking about that, by the way, because so often than not, you get a lot of your gurus out there that they say, oh, well, this is how I conquered it. Do you ever deal with it still? I know we conquer stuff, but I also want to see the human side that it still happens. Every now and then I still deal with certain things and I'm that was weird. Why did that come up out of nowhere?
Yeah.
And what triggered it?
Yes.
So now the newer version of me is just that when I notice it, I actually stop so I can actually take note of it and be I'm curious about where that came from, and it's an interesting thing to actually internalize. And I think it was, I heard this first, and I've mentioned it before, but I've heard this first from Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee said that when somebody attacks you, he's your goal is not to react. Your goal is to internalize whatever emotion you are feeling right at that moment, understand it, and get right back to center, to your core as quickly as possible. Do it long enough it becomes a practice.
Yes.
Do it even longer than that, it becomes a habit. And if you do it for a really long time, you'll actually be able to make moves long before the person even like attacks, physically or spiritually or verbally or whatever it is. You'll already have known where they were coming like before they even did it.
Yeah.
Because you've practiced that state of being at center, at core for so long that you literally have no reaction. You're just in full action mode all the time.
I love it. It's like you've practiced it so much that your subconscious wiring does the whole thing for you, and you stay at center. And I think that speaks to, to me, I always say with entrepreneurship is really one of the front lines, and relationships are too. But again, like when you're in entrepreneurship, when you're living in that world, that's the front lines to the stuff that we're talking about. That's where the principles in the book, they're not just principles that you're going to regurgitate. You have to become them, and you have to live them, because every day there's no guarantee you're on the front lines. And so going back to the Bruce Lee thing, I always say all change, all transformation, all business results even is an emotional game mostly.
Yeah.
Meaning that, tactics and strategies are very important, but your ability to leave the confines of your comfort zone, be right on the edge of your capacity. And when you're on the edge of your capacity, that's when you're most vulnerable to have breakdowns, to have episodes flare up where you're just questioning your path. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? Can't I just get a real job? That's when all of that stuff happens. Now, here's the tragic part, man, which I'm sure you've seen. I have a book here called 3 Feet from Gold. So often people treat temporary breakdowns, and usually they come from emotional states of you're leaving the confines of who you've been to leveling up to who you're becoming, and it's the messy middle, right? And they quit right before that next breakthrough. Because how many times in your life have you had a breakthrough that was followed, that there was a breakdown right before, and you had to exercise what? You had to exercise faith, patience, trust, and courage to get to the other side.
Oh man, I'm so stubborn that I use the stubbornness that I can't stop, because I know, like, I'm always like, it's the next move, isn't it? It's the next move, isn't it? I know it's the next move. It's good to know that. Yeah. Even if it's not the next move, but I'm uncomfortable every day. I make sure of it. Now, I'm so uncomfortable that I'm comfortable with it, and that's what's happened. I don't do well with comfort, because now, for anybody listening, comfort meaning like stagnancy. If things get too comfortable, what am I missing? And our growth is an evolutionary process. It's a journey. So I want to constantly push those boundaries, constantly ask questions, constantly understand myself along the way, so I can get to where I'm trying to get to, and even then, that's never ending. And I've also have a very healthy relationship with knowing that it's never ending, because end is death. And even then, that's not an ending. Our soul, I want to do so right by my soul's journey that it carries into the next, into the next life, and into the next life, and the next life, while also simultaneously impacting as many people on earth as that I can. So I'm trying to go astral with it at this point.
I love it, dude. I love it. Now you're talking about seeking the discomfort before the discomfort comes to us.
Right.
Meaning you're being proactively.
Right.
Right. So you're proactively seeking discomfort. So, because let's face it, discomfort will come.
Yeah.
But when it comes, and we've built a powerful foundation of seeking the discomfort and showing resilience with it and attacking it, then it doesn't move us off center like the Bruce Lee thing as much, and we're able to get back into an empowered state. When we don't have that foundation, the discomfort crushes us.
The discomfort makes you honest.
Yeah.
Like, I'm even using it in business now. Like, there's situations even in business where I'm like, I don't know. But they love my honesty, so they trust, like, to make good decisions. They're like, wow, that discomfort is now it's moving to people where moving into situations where you have to trust yourself and other people are trusting you, and you're creating circles of trust.
Yeah.
Because they're like, no, you don't, but you know how to get the answer. Yes, but I know how to get the answer. And yes, you know my work ethic. And yes, you know my value. And I'll bring it every single time. Yeah. And I have a track record. back to your original point about having a track record,
Yes.
the journey, the consistency will show the track record all day long, so that's the other reason why not to also care about like some of the people you lose along the way. You're like, you all remember, it's all good, there's actually documentation of it.
No, I love that, man. And consistency, it builds a deep-rooted confidence with oneself, meaning I know for me, and probably similar to you, because of some of these ingredients, work ethic, consistency, doing stuff when we don't feel like it's, overcoming resistance on a daily basis. We can go through an intense season where things aren't going that well, and we're in a chaos season, and there's a lot of adversity, and the clients aren't showing up, and it's not happening, and we don't go off center, just like the Bruce Lee thing. It's like we know who we are and we know what we're capable of. We know it's a temporary thing and that we can get back on track. And that's a confidence that in a social media world, it's a lot of the social media world, or at least what people are portraying, is a lot of bravado, external confidence. I got this awesome, badass home or rented car, whatever it is.
Right.
Even if it's my car, I don't know, it's just my value system.
And that helps me how?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
So when I get the badass car, I'm not a big car guy, but when I go and get it, I'm not going to post it because it's not in my value system.
Right.
My value system is that, hey, I can hold space with someone in conversation, and they can feel that I'm not bullshitting them, that I'm actually being real, and that my track record is just my external value and track record is just a representation of who I am on the inside.
Exactly.
So why would I ever compare that to something, even if it's magical, some man-made thing, because what I have inside is so much more powerful than that. Went on a little tangent.
No, I love it. I believe in the same thing, and it's a weird place to be in, because like, especially if a lot of people in the general public are judging the ones who are showing all of the material side of things and saying like, oh, they must be successful. And then it's like, that's not going to help you if I show you that stuff. So I'm not going to show you that stuff. Instead, we're going to have a real conversation about real shit, because that's where it's really happening. Do you want to talk about that? No. Oh, so you want to be band-aided? Then you're not for me.
Yeah. And that's that's when you build your tribe, right, based on aligned values.
Exactly. Exactly.
Alignment in values. They're going to find you. You talk about this a lot, that a lot of people are chasing numbers. And I've been told from marketing consultants time and time again, Tommy, don't talk about how hard it is so much. Talk more about the success stories. Talk about your freedom of lifestyle and how you travel and you went to Europe 2 years in a row and you live in this amazing home. No, man. I'm going to tell you the real story. And that, for me, every day I wake up, 99% of days excited for the day.
Right.
That's fucking success, dude.
Right.
Like seriously, like that's success on such a more powerful level than this. But even I've been told you gotta show more of this so you can build more of an audience for that. But then my mind goes, I don't want that audience.
Right. Exactly.
I don't want the audience that is looking at the guy with the car, because that's not who I am.
That's exactly it.
And so it goes back to clarity of values of oneself. And we're going to talk about building a platform. But a lot of people just copy what other people are doing.
Of course.
Hey, this person has this many followers. Let me do exactly what they're doing.
Right.
And it's like, that's not who you are. And then you wonder why you're burned out from your own business. I wake up at 4 a.m. I don't hustle. Like people say, oh, you're hustling. No. I'm aligned, dude.
Right. You're living intentionally.
Yeah, you don't. That's hustle, and it's a word it's a buzz phrase. So I use it at times. Obviously, it's near a brand, but at 4 a.m. I'm not hustling. I'm doing aligned, purposeful work.
Yeah,
I'm not running around like a chicken with no head and going insane with pings and emails and going crazy till 16 hours a day. I'm not.
Yeah.
Now there might be seasons for that, but somebody else is going to see it. They're going to say that's hustling. I'm going to say no. That's knowing who I am. That's knowing that me, when I wake up and do my creative work first before anybody else is awake, I'm in a state of empowerment, and then I serve everybody else better. I show up to this podcast better. This morning, I didn't necessarily want to train at Glory Gains Gym. I went there. Why? Because I have you here in front of me, and I want to be able to show up at my max potential and presence when you're in front of me.
Believe me, I had to wake up. I had to do my morning, my 20 this morning.
Nice.
About 4:45. I'm like, get up.
I love that.
Two things I wanted to say. The different points, but from the point of hustle, that a lot of people, you get it because you live aligned and with intention. When I had started the brand, and I still believe in it, hustle is representative of the work that one must do in all aspects of their life to create a good life, to serve out their purpose. The market took hustle and kind of ran with it in a different direction. It was like, grind until you're like, and somebody pointed this out to me recently. I thought it was great. I forget who it was, but it was like, look at a pencil. What happens when you like grind it down to like nothing, to like a nub? Yeah. It's useless.
Ooh, I like that.
Right? And I was like, oh my God. And then the other thing I was going to also point out is like, you said that the agencies all say like, you got to get the follower account, you got to do this, you got to do that. So I sit on a board of a tech company, and young kids, they're good guys, and they were told by an agency like, you need 10,000 followers before people take you serious. I'm like, question, I was like, is that their only reason? And then he was like, well, yeah. And I was like, is that a strategy? And he was like, well, I don't know. I was like, let me show you how real strategy works, and take away. And all these agencies, a lot of these agencies are guilty for this. Like they think that a number is a strategy. That's an arbitrary number. Yeah. And I just for anybody out there on the business side of things, I want you guys to think about this. Think about more of like the number of followers that you want, are like, oh, hey, how many people in my industry do I want to like serve? Like, oh, I want to get like maybe 1,000 new people to to teach this stuff to, or or make aware of like why I'm doing this product, and then hopefully like maybe 200 of them potentially purchase. Then that number equates to this in sales. Like now you're actually thinking of it as a return, as a business, as what the numbers mean to you. Not like when I get to 10,000, I have a swipe up feature and people take me serious. But do people also pay you? Like you're not, perception doesn't pay. I get how some people say it does because they're playing that game, but I'm not going to play that game. I'm going to actually serve the customer instead. So how many customers do you want?
Yeah. Academy Nation will be right back with that awesome conversation, but I get asked all the time, how do you have so much energy, Tommy? How are you so clear? How are you on fire? The secret is I'm not always on fire, but I do the work every single day. I also align myself with brands, products, services, supplements, food, nutrition, environments that really put me in mental, physical, emotional peak states so I can perform. I mean, that's what we're here for. And something that I've come across recently, I've been using for now about 4 or 5 months. Taylor introduced me to them. They're called 4 Sigmatic, and they create this amazing mushroom coffee with lion's mane. It gives me a level of productivity and clear energy. You know that like really clear energy, like it's strong, but it's not jittery. You feel like kind of like zen at the same time. That's exactly what this has been doing for me. I've been taking it every single day religiously, sometimes twice a day. I know. If you've seen Extra Fire from me, but it's all healthy, it's all organic, it's all clean, no crash. And they were cool enough to say, hey, we know you like it. If your audience is into it, we're going to hook them up. And that's exactly what they did. 15% off their entire store. The mushroom coffee that I get is only $15, and they have travel packs. I take them to me into the podcast booth before coaching, and especially when I write in the morning and I need that clarity, but I don't want to have that jitter where I'm like trying to do 19 tasks at once. So check them out, 4sigmatic.com. That's 4 SIGMATIC/resist, 4sigmatic.com/resist. Check these guys out. If you're looking for clean energy, if you're looking for productivity and high level performance, this is for you. And that's real strategy.
Right. That's real strategy. That's real strategy.
Well, like how many perception doesn't pay. Visibility alone doesn't pay.
No, it doesn't.
There's so many people that have massive platforms and visibility, and they're unable to connect the dots and monetize.
Right.
And so I believe, and I don't think this is like just because of the power of social media companies. I wrote a post the other day. It said one of the reasons why you're stuck is because you believe that social media equals marketing.
Right. I saw that.
What? Yep. Social media is, first of all, it's a place primarily to have conversations.
Yeah.
And then 2, yes, it's evolved into a marketing platform. That's 1/10 of a marketing strategy.
Yeah.
And so many people will they'll just think that if I post, that means I'm marketing.
Right. Oh, and yeah. I hear that from marketers all the time. I'm like, you're not a marketer.
No, there's so much more to it.
Yeah.
And if you're relying on just that one silo,
which may or may not work, and which we have no control over, which tomorrow can completely change, then you're not gonna have a business.
Yeah.
So I always try to frame that for people who are starting out. But I wanted to go back to something.
Yes.
The hustle.
Yes, the hustle.
I did a post and then you reposted it and people were like all triggered and stuff. And basically it was about
I remember.
Yeah, that was awesome. It was awesome. And basically it was something to the effect that if you're hustling 16 hours a day, then to me that says you're likely living in distraction. You don't know your priorities, and you're doing, I don't know, I put like $10 an hour work.
Right.
People went like crazy with it. I had people on my personal wall, Gary V's fans, which it's like, dude, I love a lot of his stuff. They were like attacking me because I said the word hustle and because I was saying that you didn't have to do that. Now, again, there are seasons for that. You might have to do that to start out. But to me, the hardest lessons of entrepreneurship and growth have been like, listen, I have this core skill set, these worldview, mindsets, work ethic, actions that I took that got me to this place. Now, it's very easy to get rid of stuff that's not working when your life isn't working.
Right.
But when you create some success, when there's growth and momentum, then this is where a coach and a mentor really come to play. When you've created some growth and success, that's when your blind spots, they become smaller.
Yes.
Because when your life isn't working, everybody knows your blind spots, right? It's like they're massive, you know them. But as you grow and expand, like your blind spots become smaller. They become harder to see.
Yes.
And your ego is higher because you've experienced success.
Exactly.
But the blind spots are more costly.
Yes.
So they're smaller, but they cost more because now you got something to lose.
A lot.
And so my intention with that post was to remind, because this has been my journey, dude. Right. I can hustle and outgrind everyone, or that's like a story that I tell myself. But at what cost? Right. Is that going to get me to where I really want to go? Defining my lifestyle with a certain amount of freedom, with a certain amount of presence, because I love my business and I also love disconnecting completely from my business.
Absolutely.
Going into a void where I don't even think about it at all. And so if I'm doing 16 hours a day, it's like inputs. You only have so much. That's a time and effort economy. All of us who worked in corporate America, we lived in a time and effort economy. Matt, you come to me, you give me your time, 8 hours a day, you give me your effort, whatever metrics, I'm going to give you a piece of paper back.
Yep.
But we're entering a new era. I don't even care if you're not an entrepreneur right now. We're entering a results-oriented economy.
Yeah.
A freelance, project-based, collaborative-based economy where you're going to be paid on your results. If those results took you 16 hours, that's on you. If they took you 45 minutes, that's on you.
Yeah. There's so much in there. I'm like drooling at on this. Like, well, the thing is also a lot of Gary V's fans have to also realize Gary V, like us, love what we do. So we're actually also living what we do, like 24-hour round.
Yeah.
Now, if we're talking work, what I used to be able to do, doing the 16 to 18 hours, it worked up until a certain point.
Law of diminishing return.
Right. Yeah. Because the hustle will get you in the game. It won't sustain you. It won't sustain you. And I started to realize that when I started getting a little bit older, and while, like, to your point, like, nobody will outwork and outgrind me, but my speed was changing. And I also started noticing that speed isn't necessarily a good thing. Like, meaning, like, when you're just trying to just do a lot for 16 hours straight, where's the strategy, the foundation, the core? And actually, I spoke about this on our podcast last week, where even the girl, she's a professional boxer, a world professional boxer. She said, like, I'm not the same speed I was when I first got into the ring. And so you have to change your approach. Your approach has to be smarter. And actually, that smarter means that you're not quick to react. You only put time towards and energy towards the things that mean something to you. You preserve your health, because you're nothing without health. If your health goes, you're in deep shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? So you're right. You have more to lose. And then on top of that, you have to, in order to scale true scale actually uses time in your favor, time and money and energy in your favor. True scale. True business, true profitable business has to use time, energy, and money in scale and work for you, not against you. So if you're constantly doing like that 16-hour, and you're right, there's seasons for it, and there's also like on next level, sometimes you're like, ooh, I got to do about a 30-day binge here real quick.
Totally.
I'm going to put like some new systems into place that's going to require a little like, I'm going back into the garage. I got a brand new 67 Vet that I'm going to work on or something like that. It's like, ooh, okay, a new engine, I got it.
But that and there's intentionality and there's boundaries and you know that there's an end game to it. You're not going to be caught back up in that cycle. But I love what you said about working smarter, because what I said in that post was, listen, Pareto's principle is very real.
Very real.
You get to your business, you're making $200,000, and you can list out all the actions that you're doing, all the projects that you have, and almost universal as gravity, 20% of those are going to lead to 80% of the results. So if you're still doing all of those inputs and you haven't taken an audit of like, what's really driving this now? And what if I stripped away half of what I was doing, then took half of that and put it into the needle movers that are already working, and then took the other half to regenerate and restore myself and deepen my connection with people around me, which is a very creative. The higher levels of success, what I notice with people, at least the people that I model and admire, they strategically disconnect and recharge and balance out their life as a competitive advantage. So when they come back to business, they have more creativity, they solve bigger problems, and they have more of a long-term vision as opposed to being in the trenches right here and right now.
They compete with their former selves.
100%.
Because it's so true. Because again, back to that point of slowing down. That slowing down allows you to speed everything else up because you're more intentional about, you're more aligned, number one, and that creativity just sparks a whole new level of like, oh wow, I didn't even see this before. Let's do that instead. Why are we spending our time on that? That doesn't make any sense. Let's get rid of that or put that off to here. Let's move this around. Like, you can see clear when you slow down, and you can make better decisions, less decisions that have maximum efficiency and profitability for your life.
Well, like your closet story, your closet, my closet, those are the business activities that we're doing.
Right.
So we wake up one day and we have jackets that we never wear. We got half of the closet is useless.
Right.
But we're still giving it energy and attention.
Right.
And that's when we have to take a moment. And that's why I do these quarterly. I just take a day, go to Galvanize, go to my office. I put my entire business and life on a whiteboard and I say, what needs to go? Yeah. What served me and was awesome, but what needs to go?
Right.
And then I create space for the new thing. Okay, so you started a platform. We've been going here, hammering it. You started a platform.
Right.
Again, the workplace is shifting rapidly. I mean, it is my belief that in 10, 15, 20 years, the idea of going to an office, to a corporate structure, is really going to start to become, it's going to flip the script where that's everybody's going to be remote, everybody's going to be freelanced. You're just not going to have the same structures and systems, which means you got to take control of your skill set. You got to take control. Even if you're not an entrepreneur, you have to act like one.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be paid on your skills and your ability to combine skills creatively to deliver value to the marketplace. I don't care what marketplace you're in. We have great freedom. I said the other day, and people say this all the time, there's never been a better time to live with purpose, to create a brand, product, or service that has aligned values, and where you get compensated and you're able to live a lifestyle that's congruent with what you want. I mean, we're living in a golden era. With great freedom comes great responsibility.
Yes.
So for you went through your whole process and you got clear and you were focused around it. These days, though, with great freedom comes great responsibility, meaning with all the options possible, what do you choose? It's the paradox of choice that Barry Schwartz talks about in his book. When I go to Whole Foods and I'm hungry and there's 19 options, I choose nothing, right? It's the same thing with business. So
right.
How does somebody out there, they're listening to this podcast, they've seen your stuff, they've seen my stuff, they want to be in this state where they're doing their own thing, they have autonomy and independence, and they're creating value, and they're putting these principles into practice every day. How do you know when you're balancing 2 or 3 options or projects or decisions that you want to go on? How do you know which one to pick?
Ooh, it's such a good question, because you're going to always deal with it at every phase of your life. Yeah. I believe, because you're always going to have, if you're a creator, you're always going to be having new things, and as you're evolving, you're always going to have new things coming up. I try to look at it from, I have a certain skill sets that have done really right by me. but I've also learned a lot about it in business of how do I make them work more for me now? Yeah. Because that's the evolution of me as well too. And then I started thinking about how there are multiple things. Like I love doing the media. I love, like, all that is amazing, but that's a long game thing. So I think you also have to look at all of the pieces and go, okay, what can I use my skill sets for now, and also systemize that in some way.
Sure.
And and how does that also feed my long game, and what is my long game? So I think you have to look at both your short and your long game, and you have to look at your short game from a strategic standpoint, not from a like, oh, let me just grab a bunch of money.
Yeah, right? From a scarcity survival.
And I'll give you a perfect example, because for me, like, I love doing all the media. I've always loved consulting, like business and digital. Basically, I was a digital strategist, a digital consultant, sure. Right? And it's because how do we make businesses more digitally friendly and scale and all that other stuff. But I hadn't really done it for me, nor had I done it for my consulting business. So over time, I started narrowing it down, and I started seeing the areas that most people need help with, which is the systems. Like, they're techie, but they're not techie enough. Yeah. Well, it's the stuff that I happen to geek out on and I actually really like. And it also is a service that actually really helps them. Yeah. Like, I mean, really helps like automate and scale, more so at the entrepreneurial level, like, sure. Because we were geeking out one day on all this stuff. Where I actually started building out all of these systems and then showing people how to do them, et cetera. And then that turned into a service that also is recurring, right? And so that is also my financier.
Okay, I love that.
So, but I'm helping businesses. I'm being smarter about how I consult. I'm having impact. I'm creating efficiency and maximizing their profit. But it's already been built. I built a foundation, so I don't have to keep starting from scratch with other businesses anymore. So now I took a skill set and I was able to systemize that and then bring that system to other people to help their businesses. Cool. Now I feel really good about that as a whole, and it makes me a better business person as well. Yeah. On top of that, it's also my financier, so I'm not relying on anybody, and I don't have to take any short-term sponsorships or things that I don't want from people for my media, that because I want the longer game of it, and I want to be able to have like my own endorsement deals or do my own like distribution and all that other stuff, right? I don't know if this is helping.
Well, it's totally. Well, yeah, you detailed a system of like, hey, these are my skill sets. Now, how did you do this intuitively, or did you take a step back and say, hey, listen, you put it on paper or on a whiteboard or on a journal? It's like, these are the things that I already have skill at. These are some of the problems in the marketplace. These are some of the solutions that I could provide. I mean, how would you advise someone to do that exercise?
Perfect. That's almost exactly how it went down. So I first started with, okay, what have I been constantly contracted to do, and what people have come to me for help? That was step one. Step two was, okay, now I don't necessarily have all the answers because I'm not out in the market yet. So let me create a couple different things. Hopefully you can do it quicker than not, and see what people come to it and what I get from the customers from that. Yeah. Great. Then once the customers come, let me collect data. What was their experience like? Did they finish it? Did they get the results that they wanted? Why didn't they get the results? Like, what can I have done better? Go back to the humility part, right? What could I have done differently? Cool. And as you continue to take in that data, then it's right back to the whiteboard and you go, okay, for some reason, this seems to be the niche that like seems to have the highest return of people doing the work or the results or the financials, whatever it might be. Yeah. Let me maybe double down on that and get rid of some of the other things that are taking up my time, so I can actually like scale that thing up. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that was like, and I'm sure like as a coach, you probably know this, like, it's like, that there's probably been at one point you want to help the world, but you can't help the world. I mean, we can with our content. Sure. But as far as the type of people that are going to do the work, you probably had to figure out what seemed to be the ones that were, aligned with your passion for what you're doing, and they were ready to listen. Yes. And once you find that alignment from the data, then you can double down on increasing the programming for your clients. And that's where you hit the sweet spot of being able to really produce results and duplicate results. I got clear on that a couple years ago, that for my higher offerings that required my full, I have different programs and memberships and stuff like that, but for my highest level audience who wants the most, who are most ready, it was male entrepreneurs who want to run a location independent business, and usually on the training or coaching or some type of thought leader type side. That was a place where I could
that was my leverage point for maximum results.
That's
it. Doesn't mean along the way that I didn't work with executives.
Right.
Doesn't mean that along the way I didn't work with entrepreneurs in software or tech or other places, but my sweet spot was right there. And that's where I was able to not only leverage results so I could charge more, but create processes and systems that spoke directly to them, instead of what happens early on in entrepreneurship, that we try to do everything at once. And it really does everybody a disservice, but most importantly us, because then we have nothing to stand on. And of course, a lot of people have very short time frames with this stuff.
Right, absolutely.
Man, I'm going to quit my job and I got 4 months to make this work. And if it doesn't work, then I'm done.
Right.
And I'll have to go back with my tail between my leg, and all my friends are going to make, that's a lot of pressure.
Right.
Now, I talk about manufacturing urgency, but it's a healthy urgency.
Absolutely.
It's an urgency rooted in clarity. I use mortality in that. I reverse engineer. It's all of that. And there's healthy pressure, but sometimes there's unhealthy pressure.
Absolutely.
If this has to work in 3 months, otherwise you close up shop.
Well, it's also the wrong way of approaching it too, because it's like it's got to be deeper rooted internally as to like why you're doing this. There's got to be somewhere in there a bigger picture. You don't have to know all the variables. There's got to be a bigger picture. But I love what you said about like knowing that it's the male entrepreneur that with all these set of variables you discovered that, and the way you discovered that was you were already out there kind of maneuvering around the different type. You had your different programs. You were able to gather the data.
Yeah.
Most people don't realize like you're never prepared for the market. As perfect as possible, because you don't know data until you're in the market.
So true.
And
which means you have to get out there.
You have to get out there.
And for me, that was coaching people who I knew deep down were not in alignment with that sweet spot, but I'm going to show up, I'm going to give it everything I had, I'm going to see what the data says.
Yeah.
And so that included humbling myself to coach people that usually, and even I had a semblance at that point of who my ideal dream client, let's call it, was. And I was like, obviously, this is not it.
Yeah.
But they're in front of me right now. Let me collect data. Let me go through that process. And that's where that's just reps, man.
Oh man,
it's reps. Dude.
It's reps. It's consistency. Well, and somebody pointed this out to me the other day, and this was brilliant because I hadn't even thought of it. They're like, I love watching the evolution of your brands, and I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, well, you had hustle and deal flow, so you had like creators and their companies like doing the work. Then you had hustle sold separately. Like, let's actually talk about the work and like what's going on there. And I recently, it's kind of under wraps, but I mean, it's getting ready to launch here. It's called Systems Over Hustle.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And really, it's dedicated to your type of, not just male, but men and women, but the reducing the overwhelm, anxiety, and stress that comes in the business that they have because they haven't done some of the systems that would alleviate them. And that changed my life. And so, but I wouldn't have been able to do that without having to do it for myself first.
Yes.
And it was so funny because all the people I was coaching, there was about 35 brands this year that I coached through a program, and about half of them, that was where they were getting tripped up. It was like, they're not going to stop. They're already beyond, like they're not going back.
Yeah.
But overwhelm kept coming up over and over and over again, because how an entrepreneurial life is very overwhelming, right? And we have to find systems for ourselves personally, and especially for the business professionally. And when those systems are in place, it allows us to be better people also in our personal lives as well too. Ugh. And that then became a mission. And I was like, oh shit, like, oh cool. And so somebody pointed out the other day, they're like, so you had like the hustle, you had the documentation of like, doing like the inner work, and then now you have the evolutionary of like, how do you, implement the things that allow you to, a little bit more freedom, but most importantly, reduce that overwhelm and anxiety and stress. Because you see all these gurus online, all the scaling and this and that, but like they tell you a lot of times, they tell you like the what, but they actually don't break down like, here's how you do this, here's how you do, like, I'm gonna walk you through everything, here's all the setup, here's everything that you'll need, you just implement your stuff right into it, and now you're getting going. Now here's what we have to do next.
And today I did a post on how do you delineate a business from a hobby, and I didn't include that because character limit. But my next thing was number 7 or whatever was, you have a business when you're actively identifying and implementing systems that are going to be able to have you spend more of your time and energy and bandwidth on your key needle movers, your zone of genius, let's call it, the things that you're best at, instead of having to do something that you've done 19 times over and over over again. And what happens when we're always using willpower? Consistent, like your ability to be consistent long term is minimized because you're having to make that decision, willpower over and over again, where it's like, hey, and I you would probably agree. To me, I see a system of a business as anything that you do more than once. Yeah. So if you're doing something more than once, then you got to make that a system.
Absolutely.
So it's duplicatable. And then when you go make your first hire or you get a VA, they know what to do. You hire a team, there's a process. It's an evolution, but systems aren't sexy, yet they are what create a lot of next level results. That's true. A lot of people won't implement systems until it's like they can't do it. They're like on the verge of burnout, which I hate. Yeah.
Happened to me at one point.
Yeah.
I totally get it.
Or like they won't make that first hire of their VA until it's 6 months too late. Right. And then they'll say, Tommy, I wish you would have told me this 6 months ago. I'm like, I did tell you this 6 months ago.
Right.
But they had to get to that breaking point where it's like, my business is not going to last another 6 months unless I get help, unless I get somebody who's aligned to do the tasks that are lower level, but perfect for their evolution, so I can focus on the needle movers that matter.
Yep. That's exactly it. And it wasn't, and it was cool because then I can relate to it versus just offering it as a service of like, oh, I'm good at it. It's like, no, I've been through it, so I know exactly how you feel, and I know that if you don't do these certain things here, the business can't go any further than it already is. And that's in anything. I mean, it's like I equate systems to your business and into your life, but systems to your business just like gasoline in a car. Without the gas, it's not going anywhere.
Love that. It's
simple.
It's autopilot.
Yeah.
It's like you said, that's why I like that you said personal systems too, because for me, my habits, every single day, I've 7 years with one of these.
Yep.
Why? Because it tells me that in a day I'm going to drink a gallon of water, which means my hydration is going to be on point. I tell you, like a year ago, I missed a day, and I didn't realize it was one of the worst days I've had in a while.
Interesting.
And I was trying to figure out what the hell happened. And I was like, dude, you were not hydrated.
It's the details, see?
Dude, is it crazy? So it's like, but that's the autopilot. So how many things can we put on autopilot personally and professionally so we have extra bandwidth to do the things that matter?
Absolutely. Well, and the flip side of that too is, and I learned a lot of that from Dr. Joe, how I get it. A lot of times people look at where they're at now and say, oh, actually it's really so hard. And it's like, well, actually you're basing everything off of yesterday and up until today.
Yeah. So
you can actually change that and look to where you want to go. And I heard something really interesting a few weeks ago. A spiritual mentor of mine who works with people with addiction, and he had a gentleman who 20 years sober, and somebody asked the gentleman, well, not the spiritual person, but his client. Sure. His client. Somebody asked his client. They said, do you ever think about having a drink? And the client said, well, the old me thinks about it every single day. The new me has never had a drink in his life.
Oh, damn.
And it was because he was saying more from the power of, like, you choose the moment you choose a new life or make a new decision or a new direction.
Yeah.
That version of you is brand new. The old version that person has never done the thing that the old version did.
Yeah.
And if you come from a perspective that way, moving forward, then you're able to implement process and programs and habits and things like that for you, like starting
100%.
Today.
Yeah.
Yesterday's but you hear people say all the time, like, oh, yesterday's gone, tomorrow's not here, blah, blah, future, present, and all that other stuff. But I like when a lot of people who break it down.
Yeah.
And once they start breaking it down to that, like when you actually think about like, oh no, by getting present, this version of you has not actually existed up until now.
Yeah.
And this version of you is whatever you want it to be. You just now have to move in that direction forward.
Which is, and the word decision means to cut off. And when you cut something off, you're essentially letting it go. And in the context of the ego, what you're really doing is letting a part of you die.
Yeah.
Which is fucking scary.
Right.
But it's part of the process. And that's why change can be so difficult, because your ego truly believes that a part of you is dying. And it is dying. And that brings up fear, doubt, uncertainty, all of this stuff. But if you're willing to make new choices and new decisions based on your future self and where you're going, you do that. It's like a rubber band effect. You do that long enough and the rubber band stretches and there's so much tension. And then there's that last breakdown where there's the highest tension and you can go back to your old ways and you have a decision to make. And then tomorrow, the tension is gone because it's just you've gone from knowing to doing to being, and that's who you are. Dude, the time flew by.
Right.
Couple last questions. Okay, so how do you define How do you define hustle today?
Well, today, I think it's still the same as when I initially started the brand, and that's, I believe that anything good in your life requires work. We can use the word hustle as putting in that time, energy, investment into all aspects of your life. Every area of your life needs hustle, it needs work, needs intention and attention. You are not just your work, you are not just your health, you are not just your finances, you're not just your relationships, you're all of it combined, and all of it needs your attention. So I believe hustle is dedicating that time, energy, and attention to all aspects of your life.
I love that, man. And how would you define flow?
Oh,
it's like my favorite word in the world.
Flow has become my favorite word. Flow is an inner knowing and operating off of a slowed down version of you that is completely present and in your own vibe, and just a knowing. And I also believe it comes from an experience, and it's a way. It's just a way of being. And how much time do we got? No, but if you really think about it, it's, I'm not attached to any outcomes. I'm not putting my energy on yours, nor am I accepting anybody else's energy as mine. It belongs to them. I am, constantly leading from a heart-centered place, not an egocentric state. So therefore, I'm able to maneuver, I'm able to move fluidly from person to person and situation to situation, while also having my creativity and my intuition guide me. If I had to break it down like that, I'm gonna get that playback.
That's part 2.
I'll have to get that playback.
We'll deconstruct that there in part 2.
Yeah.
Awesome, brother. Okay, where can people connect? You got the podcast. You got the multiple pages. Where's the best place?
Yeah, I definitely love people to check out the podcast. Hustle sold separately, right? The work, the dream is free. The work is done separately, right? And you guys can also reach out to me at Matt Gottesman, MattGottesman on Instagram, or at H as in Henry, D as in dog, F as in Frank, HDF magazine on Insta. Those are the 2 places I
think he answers literally every. I don't know how you do it. You literally answer every message.
I do.
You're a beast.
Yeah, I actually do answer. But even then, I found a process and a system for that.
There we go.
A certain time
Smart.
of either when I first launch it, or like a certain activity, if you will.
Yeah, so, totally.
But yeah.
All right, brother. Well, thank you for your passion, your wisdom, your energy. Love it, man. This has been overdue, but divine timing with anything, man. It's been a pleasure to watch you grow. Your content, it speaks to my soul, and there's not a lot of accounts that I go to and that I always get that hit, that like, it's like capital T truth. It's not like, it's not fluff. It's not motivational fluff. It's like truth, which is much more motivating and inspiring than any of that fluff. I'm going to leave you out on this, man. When you hear the phrase resist average, what comes to your mind?
Resist average. You can't stay in mediocrity. You got to go for your greatness. You are your greatness. And I think you owe it to yourself and to your soul, for what it was put here on earth, to pursue out that, to not pursue, but to actually live out that greatness. And you've got to, you're not the story in your head. You're not average. None of us are. It actually hurts my heart when I think about people who, sorry if I'm going on a rant, but it actually does hurt my heart when people think that they're average or they're mediocre.
Me too.
And they're not. None of us are. We're just sometimes a compilation of stories in our head that either were given to us for a reason, or by circumstance, or by whatever. But you've got to get out of that story, because there's no soul like yours. There's no human being like you. And so you're not average. You may just be playing that way, but you gotta get out of that, because there's a whole purpose that you came here specifically, one out of billions and billions and billions, to come here to do. It's on an astral level. And so I think that average is it'll crush you, and it doesn't belong in your world.
Mic drop, baby. It's my new intro, brother.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Wow, another awesome Resist Average Academy podcast. Thank you so much for being here. And it's Tommy, and I just wanted to say thank you. I know you have endless opportunities and endless choices when it comes to podcasts. And the fact that you chose the Academy tells me everything I need to know about who you are and what you're committed to creating in your life. If this resonated, I ask you take 60 to 90 seconds, go to iTunes on desktop or mobile, search the Resist Average Academy podcast, leave us a 5-star review. We are working hard to increase our exposure, and this is the number one way that you can support the mission. So head over to iTunes now, take the 60 seconds, tag a friend when you resonate and connect with an episode. It would mean the world. I want to thank you for being on board on the Academy.